just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens.
Thank you, thank you. For those who know that tune, you will recognize it as one of the songs from Hamilton. I thought it might be appropriate today, and can I just say before I say anything else, I don't know whose idea it was to put me behind implicit bias, frameworks, and the unsung heroes. But thank you for the lead-in, because I work in the area of juvenile justice. One of the most difficult areas I have ever worked in. I'm a psychiatrist by training, and so I know a little something about hard work, about the challenges we face when we are dealing with the innermost thoughts, psychological illness, and other things that affect the patients and communities that I work with. So when asked if I would say a few words of 12 minutes and no more, y'all all know that I can talk for an hour. So I have a small piece of paper with everything that I need to share with you, and I'm going to hope that that keeps me on track today. I chose that music, though, because I have become really impressed with the ability of one young man of color to translate what has always been viewed as a story from a certain perspective into a whole other perspective. And that perspective has relevance across many, many, many lines of thinking. And so when I thought about the music for me, I thought about juvenile justice requires some serious advocacy for it to be effective. And what better song than being in the room where the decisions are made, where the sausage gets made, behind the curtain to see how the wizard really operates, than talking about juvenile justice. So I've taken the liberty of taking a few more of his songs and using them to explain some of the things that I think are important when it comes to juvenile justice, whether it's reform, innovation, understanding and awareness, or just plain providing what is needed to those children and families who are unfortunately caught in a system like juvenile justice. I always start with Frederick Douglass because I think this quote by him sets the frame, if you will, Julie, for where we need to go. It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men. Using frameworks language, this is the story of prosperity. This violent criminal, how we frame this, folks, matters in how much innovation we can expect in the world of juvenile justice and how much improvement we can make in that system. I will say juvenile justice. I will say juvenile justice reform. I will say juvenile court. I will not call a child a juvenile. And if you want evidence of that, go to www.juvenilefilm.com and hear a part of a trailer where my voice opens up. These are children, 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 children. It's like an echo chamber. It's going to be released. It's a documentary that will be released next spring, I believe, done by True Story Pictures. So for anyone who follows them, you will see and hear some of these things on that film. Number 2, I love it when they give me a great lead-in. Share the science. In Hamilton language, if you think about the story as told by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton had probably 7 aces. Let me just list a few. Bastard, orphan, born alone in a forgotten place in the Caribbean. Immigrant, he got sick after the hurricane, his mother too, and she died. Went to live with a cousin who committed suicide. He was born into poverty. At the age of 14, already working in a slave trading house in his home country. And the horrible hurricane that brought him to the attention of the one thing that saved him, the compassionate, caring adults in his community who got money together to send him to the United States because he showed promise. So the notion that a caring adult community that consistently provides the protective factors for children who have high risk for ACEs goes back a long way. We just didn't know the science behind it, and we didn't have frameworks, language to help us share it with other people. Evidence-based science to support what we know. This is a graphic illustration of the adolescent brain. You will notice that somewhere over here it talks about the rapid learning and development of the brain between 0 and 3. How many of you understand there's a second period in the developing brain process where we can still make a difference? Science, evidence. We can demonstrate this in a current brain using brain imagery and dye and some other things. I don't do it, but there are people who can talk to us about this period between 9 and 14, where if we haven't done enough here, we can play catch up here and still turn those children in a different direction. And for the population that I work with, this is our unfortunate sweet spot. 9 through 14 is when kids start to get into the juvenile justice system. Some come younger, but that's rare. Now, this is the scientific adolescent brain. This is the real adolescent brain that you left home this morning. There's this big part over here that only thinks about birds and bees. You know, it's the part that says sexting is okay because it's my friend. And it's also the part that once the brain fully develops becomes the no, that's not a good idea part of the brain. No, you really don't want to hold your leg out of the car and drag it on the ground as your car's going 70 miles an hour. That's kind of dangerous. Or you don't want to play the drinking game until you're intoxicated and perhaps dead. And all those other risky things that we hear about from kids. There's a whole area here that is focused on whatever you say do, I'm doing the exact opposite. That's where this resides, right down here. And then there are other things over here. Lots of peer pressure, demanding to know the answer to why I have to do anything, all of that stuff. That's all right there. So this is the science brain, and this is the real brain. Number 3, the focus of the juvenile justice system from its beginning was rehabilitation and not punishment. Somewhere along the way, we lost track of that, and we began saying that children who commit crimes deserve punishment. And the more heinous the crime, the more severe the punishment. But fortunately for us, there are people much smarter than me who have worked in this area and are providing us with blueprints and roadmaps for how to get out of the mess we're in by using science, adolescent development and understanding of that, engaging families and communities, doing prevention, mitigation, intervention work. And I have to say, Tennessee has done a tremendous job in this area. As someone who's been working in this area now for the last few years with many of you in this audience, we're making headway, and I hope one day we'll serve as a model for the nation. The fourth is a quote from a dear friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Carl Bell in Chicago. Some of you may know his work. He and David Satcher, who was the, I believe, 15th or 16th Surgeon General, can't agree on who actually said it, so I attribute it to both of them. Risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. Say it with me. Risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. Folks, we are the protective factors for the children and families who are trapped in the juvenile justice system. And when we live up to our responsibility as adults who manage systems, who provide treatment, who are out there engaging people in communities all the time, when we share with them the importance of understanding the science and its impact on how children, as Reverend Charlie Caswell said yesterday, shouldn't be left with something's wrong with them. They should be encouraged to understand that something has happened that has helped put them on this path, this trajectory into these systems, and that we now know enough to be able to help them in that. The Center for Health and Justice Involved Youth was established for the sole purpose of making sure that we pay attention to those 4 things. That we understand that words matter. that we appreciate the fact that as long as there is a scientific evidence underpinning this stuff, it is our obligation to share that and to encourage people to use that in framing programs, in talking to legislators, in speaking about how funding should be allocated to serve this population, in working with our partners in the community to make sure that this stuff gets done. And then finally, to understand rehabilitation, not punishment. I want to end with another Hamilton reference. And on the heels of that wonderful song that we just heard, let me just say, history has its eyes on us and how we do this work. And we want the ones who tell our story about this time in the history of our country, of the state, of the folks who do this work. We want that to be a story that we will be proud to have told for generations to come. History has its eyes on us. Thank you.